Scientists believed that there are about 30 million types of living things in the world. However, only about 2 million of them have been discovered. These living things have been classified into several kingdoms according to observable characteristics or traits. About 2,000 years ago, Aristotle, a Greek philosopher, attempted to classify living things. He classified living things into two kingdoms, animal kingdom and plant kingdom. In 1753, Carolus Linnaeus, a Swedish botanist, created a system and further divided the living things under each kingdom into smaller subgroups. As more discoveries were made, Robert Whittaker, an American biologist, further classified living things into 5 kingdoms in 1969. With these classifications, scientists can then understand living things better. Living things are also given scientific names, such as Homo sapiens for human and Cocos nucifera for a coconut tree. These scientific names are in Latin. By using only one language for the scientific names, it enables scientists around the world to communicate effectively about a specific living thing. The animal kingdom can be divided into 2 major groups, the vertebrates and the invertebrates. Vertebrates are animals with backbones. Invertebrates are animals that do not possess a backbone. Vertebrates are animals with backbones. Human beings are vertebrates, so are fish, birds, frogs, and snakes. Vertebrates have a backbone which extends through the length of the body. Invertebrates are animals that do not possess a backbone. Examples of invertebrates are sponges, jellyfish, earthworms, snails, crabs, and sea stars. Fish are cold-blooded vertebrates. Their body temperature changes according to the environment. Fish have hard, slimy scales that protect their bodies. They have fins and tails that help move their streamlined bodies through the water. They are able to absorb dissolved oxygen underwater through their gills. Fish come in all shapes and sizes. Some examples are sharks, clownfish, pufferfish, and stingray. Amphibians are another group of cold-blooded vertebrates. Amphibians, such as frogs, toads, and salamanders, lead a double life. The adults tend to live on land, while the young are bred in water. An example is a frog and its tadpoles. When the tadpoles are first hatched from the eggs, they live in water. They will migrate on land when they mature into frogs. Amphibians have webbed feet, and they possess lungs. As their lungs are not as well formed as human beings, they require moist skin that serves as an additional respiratory organ. Snakes, crocodiles, turtles, and lizards are some examples of reptiles. They are cold-blooded vertebrates too. Reptiles have dry, scaly skin, which helps to prevent water loss. Similar to amphibians, they have lungs too. However, the lungs of reptiles are well developed, unlike those of amphibians. This group of vertebrates lay their eggs on land. Their eggs are protected with thick, leathery shells that prevent them from drying up. Birds are vertebrates which are warm-blooded. Some examples are owls, toucans, and crows. Birds have a coat of feathers. They are the only type of vertebrates that have feathers. The wings and beaks are common features of birds. However, there are some birds which do not fly. An example is the ostrich. Birds reproduce by laying eggs. Their eggs are protected with shells. Monkeys, human beings, whales and bats are classified under mammals. Mammals are warm-blooded vertebrates that are able to retain constant body temperature regardless of the environment. This is made possible by their hair or fur. Mammals have hair or fur which other groups of animals do not have. Most mammals give birth to live young instead of laying eggs. Their young develop inside the mother and are nourished by a placenta. Once born, the young suckle milk from the mammary glands of the mother. However, not all mammals give birth to their young alive. The duck-billed platypus and anteater lay eggs. Living things such as mushrooms, toadstools, and molds are classified under fungi. Fungi cannot produce their own food. They absorb nutrients from their surroundings. There are many different types of fungi, and they can look very different. Some are poisonous, while some are edible. Some examples are mushrooms, toadstools, and bread mold. Bacteria are single-celled organisms. That is, they are made up of one cell. They do not have any visible nucleus. They have cell wall and cell membrane like the plant cells. However, the structure of their cytoplasm is different from the plant and animal cells. Protists can be single-celled or multicellular. They evolved from bacteria. Some protists are able to make their own food, just like plants. They are known as plant-like protists. Algae are one example of plant-like protists. Most algae are able to make energy from sunlight, like the plants. Some are known as animal-like protists, as they possess the characteristics of animals. Amoeba, for example, cannot make their own food. Slime molds are fungi-like protists. They can be rather colorful. They feed on decaying vegetation, bacteria, fungi, and even other slime molds. The plant kingdom can be divided into two groups, the flowering and the non-flowering plants. Flowering plants are identified by the presence of their flowers and their possession of seeds. Some examples are rose plants and the sunflower plants. Non-flowering plants can be further divided into two groups, seed plants and seedless plants. Non-flowering seed plants are known as conifers. There are two types of seedless plants. They are ferns and mosses. Flowering plants are often used for aesthetic purposes. Apart from their beauty, some of these plants are able to provide food for other organisms. Flowering plants reproduce by seeds from their fruits. Usually they have stems, leaves, and roots. Flowering plants are very diverse. Some examples of flowering plants are hedgehog cactus, flame of the forest, eucalyptus tree, and orchid. Non-flowering plants which have seeds are known as conifers. Those which are seedless reproduce through spores. The spores of ferns are found on the underside of leaves, while the spores in mosses are kept in capsules. Conifers are non-flowering plants. Like most plants, they have stems and roots. However, instead of fleshy leaves, the leaves of conifers are needle-like. These needle-like leaves help to prevent water loss. The seeds of conifers are stored in cones. There are about 500 species of conifers. Some examples of conifers are pine tree, cycad, and casuarina tree. Ferns are non-flowering, spore-bearing plants. Some ferns have lush leaves, while others have leaves that are divided into leaflets. These plants have roots and stems too. They reproduce through spores that are found on the underside of matured leaves. There are about 12,000 species of ferns. Some examples of ferns are bird's nest fern, rabbit's foot fern, staghorn fern, and dragon scale fern. Mosses are another group of non-flowering, spore-bearing plants. They are different from other plants as they do not possess true roots. They have simple structured stems and tiny leaves. They are generally small and reproduce by spores that are stored in a capsule. Some examples of mosses are the half-cup moss and the white moss.